And can you give us an introduction to Senate Bill 1586?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Senate Bill 1586. I will note that we have a -4 amendment that came in last night. So the scripted material they have in OLS is for the introduced version of the bill, which there are many changes in the -4. So just two things I would highlight different from the intro, or three things I suppose, is there are some changes to the R&D tax credit as described in the intro version of the one-pager. And then the changes to the enterprise zone and the school support fee have both, are not included in the -4.
Clarification, please. What is the change to the R&D?
I believe Senator Sollman will probably be describing it, but it's the intro version was modifying the existing research and development tax credit that's for semiconductors, building within that framework, where the change here in the -4 is essentially it looks like creating a new R&D tax credit for advanced manufacturing. So rather than adding the definition into the existing one, we could have two separates.
What is the definition of advanced, follow-up? What is the definition of advanced manufacturing?
Senator Taylor, that is, it begins in the -4, and it's actually somewhat lengthy, I suppose. That's on the page one of the -4. It goes through describing advanced manufacturing. But I'd say there's not just a one-sentence definition of it in the bill, so it's describing kind of the idea of what it is and how it would fit.
I'm sorry, follow-up? So this is creating literally a whole new tax credit that's we've never had before in Oregon?
Senator Taylor, I believe so. I've only had a chance to do a quick
No,
scan
that's
of
fine.
the amendment as well.
Well, Chair Broadman, I guess one of the things I'm looking forward to hearing the testimony, and obviously it looks like we have something like 100 people here. If it's possible, it would be nice if people would clarify if they're testifying on the base bill or the -4 or what they're testifying on, because you know what I'm saying? I'm a little bit concerned that when we get people's feedback, I want to make sure we're understanding, because it seems like the -4 is a pretty significant change. So that's just my.
Thank you, Senator.
Yeah.
And we do not have a joint tax expenditure committee in the short session, so it will be important to understand exactly what's happening in the tax credit as proposed last night in the -4.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. With that, I will invite Senator Sollman and Congresswoman Janelle Bynum to the first panel. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Chair Broadbent, Vice Chair McLean, and members of the committee, for the record, I'm Janine Sollman. I proudly represent Senate District 15, and that includes Forest Grove, Cornelius, Hillsborough, and the Rock Creek area of western Washington County. It is Oregon's Culture, Commerce, and CHIPS District. I am here today to proudly present the Oregon Jobs Act, Senate Bill 1586 with the -4, and to share how this bill has evolved through collaboration. At its core, the Jobs Act is about Oregon's workers and families. Across our state, people are feeling real economic pressure from rising costs and affordability to uncertainty about jobs. Oregon has not been keeping pace with the other states that are competing for advanced manufacturing and semiconductor investment and talent. Places like Idaho, North Carolina, Texas, and Arizona, they are actively pursuing our companies and our talented workforce away from Oregon. When job-creating projects are delayed or lost, it is working families, our builders and employers and employees who feel the impact first. And as the state loses the revenue needed to support schools, infrastructure, and essential critical public services, we all feel it. The challenge we face is not a lack of vision. Oregon has been a beacon of success. Intel has invested in Oregon since the 80s, and we have shared the global semiconductor pedestal with South Korea and Taiwan. The economy has shifted. We have spent years studying the economic competitiveness, particularly in advanced manufacturing. Multiple task forces, including the 2-year Semiconductor Competitiveness Task Force and the Clean Tech Task Force, both reached consistent conclusions. Oregon needs build-ready industrial land, competitive incentives, and more predictable permitting when we want to retain and grow high-wage jobs that provide generational wealth and jobs that keep our kids here and thriving. There is broad consensus around the simple but powerful framework of this bill. First, keep what we have. Second, grow what we have. And third, expand strategically and carefully where it makes sense. We've worked closely with stakeholders across the state, local governments, community members, industry partners, and advocacy organizations to strengthen the bill before you and address concerns. On land use, we negotiated carefully balanced language with the City of Hillsborough and Metro that does two very important things. First, it brings 373 acres immediately into the urban growth boundary for advanced manufacturing jobs. Second, it returns the remaining 1,400 acres to Metro's authority as urban reserves. It's important to note that this specific site is a unicorn and presently outside the typical land use process. To be clear, no standalone data centers, no retail warehouses, and no commercial recreation. They are strictly prohibited and written as such in the bill. On enterprise zones, we heard concerns about fiscal impacts from affected stakeholders. We removed that provision completely. On permitting reform, we heard concerns about agency capacity and workload. We removed the fee refund requirement while maintaining transparency and accountability through published timelines and permit catalogs. What's emerged is a focused bill that modernizes Oregon's research and development tax credit to keep us competitive, unlocks a well-invested, build-ready site for family wage manufacturing jobs, and improves permitting predictability. This bill is about Oregon workers and families. It's about jobs. We are losing manufacturing jobs. 25,000 jobs last year, including 9,400 in manufacturing, while other states are gaining them. 2/3 of Oregon businesses contacted by out-of-state recruiters report leaving or expanding elsewhere. These aren't abstract statistics. These are lost wages that support families, fund our public schools, and keep communities strong. This bill is not just about large employers. 90% in Oregon is small business, and they play a critical role. The ripple effect from our large employers in Oregon can be felt in the smallest mom and pop businesses across Oregon. Jobs at all levels keep our economy thriving and our main streets open for business. You will hear from experts today who can share more technical detail on the land and the R&D tax credit and the capital equipment incentives, and you will hear the real economic impact. I want to just really make something clear. Oregon has one of the highest unemployment rates in the nation. Our building trades have upwards of 54% unemployment. They have electricians that are just waiting for a job. But I also want you to hear this from me. We have been planning for over a decade. We have listened. We have improved the bill, and now it's time to act. Listen, learn, act. Let's get Oregon back to work. Thank you. And I am so honored to be next to my Congresswoman Bynum, my former co-chair on the Joint Semiconductor Task Force. I'm honored to have her here today. Thank you, Congresswoman Bynum.
Thank you, Senator. Welcome, Congresswoman.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you to the committee for holding this public hearing. Chair Broadman, members of the committee, for the record, my name is Janelle Bynum. I'm here as a businesswoman, a mom of 4, a concerned citizen, and I also proudly represent Oregon's 5th congressional district, which includes Portland, Bend, West Linn, Albany, Oregon City, Scioto, Redmond, Lake Oswego, and Happy Valley, among others, in the United States Congress. And I'm here to testify today on Senate Bill 1586 with the -4 amendments, the Oregon Jobs Act. Now, we all love Oregon, and I want nothing more for my kids and yours to be able to get a good education, a good job, and to be able to afford to stay here in this great state. But our current job market and business environment is standing in the way of that for too many young Oregonians. We've lost thousands of jobs in the last year, expenses are rising, and we've been warned of a recession. I consider the Oregon Jobs Act a continuation of the landmark investments Oregon made just a few years ago when we passed the Oregon CHIPS Act. It was the biggest pro-business, pro-worker, Pro-Oregon, investment in recent history. We needed good jobs then, and we need more good jobs now. It was a bipartisan effort aimed at strengthening our economy, investing in communities around the state, and ensuring our young people have jobs to look forward to for the next 20 to 50 years. Now, this bill, it dovetails nicely with the work that I'm actually doing in Congress, and I've put creating jobs and economic development as a top priority in my K through 30 package to support young Oregonians. Now, a point of clarity here, we normally talk about K through 12. I've included that, but I'm also talking about 18 through 30 because these kids are not leaving. They're at home, they're coming back, they're on the payroll, and we have to make sure that they have options. So that's where the 30 comes from. Now, we've laid some of the groundwork with K through 30, but we're still a long way from where we want to be. In 2025, our state placed 39th in CNBC's ranking of America's top states for business, 46th in Wallet Hub's job market rankings, and 47th in business friendliness. So today, I'm here to point out the benefits of the bipartisan Oregon Jobs Act. Businesses are ready to come and Oregonians are ready to work, but we don't have the industrial lands we need at the ready. This bill, which I see as an extension of the work on the CHIPS Act, will make the one-time small changes to the UTGB for big, long-term results. This isn't just about our economy, it's about livability. It's about doing the small things, unlocking the generational investments that allow our kids to have good jobs when they finish school, that also provide more revenue for our schools and our infrastructure, and that makes Oregon a place everyone can afford to call home. Now is the time for a responsible, competent, and forward-thinking government. Now is the time to bank the right kind of land for the right opportunity, to create incentives that will pay dividends well into the future, and to initiate regulatory reform that balances all of our needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Colleagues, any questions for Senator Sollman?
Yes,
Senator.
thank you. So for Senator Sollman, I just wondering if you could walk us through and what the logic was of going from the R&D tax credit and then creating the manufacturing tax credit, who's included, what the cost is. I just was wondering if you could walk us through that, please.
Thank you, Senator Taylor and Chair Broadman. I will say that the reason that we included an expansion of the R&D tax credit was simply because it's a competition tool. It is we know that other states are offering this expanded version and enticing our advanced manufacturing, our semiconductors, our biotech to other states with this tool with an expansion. I will defer. There is some experts that will be coming up and they can answer your questions all the way through the R&D tax credit that I just in interest of time as well. And I'm going to stay in the room. So if there isn't anything answered, I am happy to follow up.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Senator.
Thank you, Chair. Senator Sollman, Section 18, it puts a short, this is the permitting process. I notice you have a repeal of that section on January 2nd of 27. Seems like a very short time. Is there a reason for that? Why?
On the regulatory reform, oh, sorry.
On the what? On your bill, Section 18 says Section 17 of this 2026 Act is repealed on January 2nd, 2027.
I apologize. I don't have that one right in front of me, but we do have someone that is going to come up and talk about the R&D tax credit. They're going to talk about the regulatory reform, and I am happy to stay afterwards and go over any of that. But that is in their testimony, what they'll be talking about.
I'll get it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And so for future testimony, we're looking at cost of the R&D tax credit, why there is a sunset in 2027, and the contours of the tax credit per Senator Taylor's questions. So we'll look forward to that.
Yeah.
If we don't get our questions answered, we'll certainly call you back up.
We'll get them answered for you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you both so much.
Thank
With that, I
you.
will call Senator David Brock Smith and Representative Hai Pham up, please.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, please go.
Go ahead. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, Senator Chair Broadman and Vice Chair McLean and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Hai Pham. I'm the state representative for House District 36. And I'm here in supporting the bill, Senate Bill 1586, with the Dash 4 amendments. In 2005, high-tech and advanced manufacturing industries accounted for 19% of Oregon's economy. However, due to challenges in space for companies to expand their operations, permitting and regulatory delays, and a lack of target incentives, we have seen those numbers begin to slip. Oregon once stood toe-to-toe with other countries like Taiwan and South Korea for advanced manufacturing, but today we're facing competition against neighboring states in Washington, Arizona, and as many other states are passing legislation and creating incentives to make them more attractive to businesses. For decades, the Silicon Forest in Washington County and the ecosystem that has been created around it has been fueling and benefiting our state economy. After all, businesses and workers don't see jurisdictional lines, as businesses are all deeply connected, but they do see state lines. By not taking action, we risk losing more industries, companies, and jobs who will look to relocate or open their doors in other states. As many of you know, our state general funds are highly dependent on payroll taxes. If we lose these jobs, it is incredibly difficult to replace or even gain these business back and jobs back. And it's not just jobs, our future state or local revenues that we will lose. Industries and businesses have a rippling effect on our supply chains, housing, markets, school funding, and the network of small businesses that support them. As someone who is deeply passionate about life sciences and biotechnology, I believe that we have the workings to be the next life sciences hub, as we have state-of-the-art medical and research institutions with OHSC and our cluster of universities that do world-leading research. We have businesses and high-tech industries that are the engines of our economy. We have a workforce ready to be upskilled, trained, and take these competitive wage jobs, but it's only with intentional policymaking and legislation to realize this vision. Senate Bill 1586 is a right-sized approach that helps to get us there and ensure that our economy is prosperous for years to come. The R&D tax credit in the bill will not only allow for the states to retain and attract strong jobs, but they will ensure that businesses stay here in Oregon. The regulatory reform provisions also give our business community the transparency and predictability that they need to operate. Every day in processing permits results in cost to companies, small contractors waiting for bids, and families waiting for stable employment opportunities. Colleagues, we cannot wait any longer. We must come together and support our advanced manufacturing industry, the jobs they create, and the families they deserve. Please support this bill through the finish line and let us send a collective message to say that Oregon is open for business. I urge a strong aye vote on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Senator.
Good morning, Chair Broadman, Vice Chair McLean. For your record, I'm State Senator David Brock Smith. I represent Curry, Coos, and Douglas Counties, Southwest Oregon's Fish Farm and Forestry District. And I appreciate the opportunity to come before you and support Senate Bill 1586, the Oregon Jobs Act. As you will see, this is a bipartisan, bicameral piece of legislation that is moving forward to move Oregon forward. As you've heard from testimony earlier, other states are incentivizing advanced manufacturing and other tax credits. It's critically important, as you've also heard, that we move forward with Oregon as well, as we've lost so many thousands of these manufacturing jobs in this state. I would turn to the article that was published in the Oregonian on Friday, that we are in a recession. Portland economist warns. He says, we are in a recession, Wilkinson said. He ticked off a litany of economic headwinds, again, real estate investors, to stay in Portland residents, growing pessimism about the financial prospects. And he also went on to thrive. He said, the region must find a way to attract businesses and residents, boost incomes, while making housing more affordable and reform its tax system so it's less reliant on taxes on the personal income. Unless we're willing to do things differently, we should expect the same outcomes. This piece of legislation does things differently. And the reason why I'm here today is because it isn't Portland-centric. These advanced manufacturing tax credits and the regulatory burden relief doesn't just happen in Portland, it happens throughout the state. And the provisions in this legislation will assist businesses in my district as well. So I applaud Senator Sollman for moving forward with an intense discussion over many years to bring this bill forward, for all of us to move Oregon forward as we should. I'm not one of those legislators that, let me back up. I am one of the legislators that understands that a healthy Portland is a healthy Oregon. And so we must make sure, and the provisions in this bill allow for that expansion within the metro area so that we can move forward with opportunities in the Portland area. But I'm just here to tell you that this bill will provide those same opportunities in my district, and the related jobs is so critically important in rural Oregon. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Our first panel of invited guests is Commissioner Fye, Councilor Sinclair, and Councilor Nolan. And for those in the room, we're going to limit testimony to 2 minutes each. We'll try to fit in as many folks as we can. I apologize if I have to cut you off at 2 minutes, but I want to hear from as many people as we possibly can today. Welcome, Commissioner and Councilor.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Nafisa Fye, and I serve as a Washington County Commissioner. I'm speaking today in my personal capacity to oppose Senate Bill 1586. As a county commissioners, we consistently work to balance the needs of a growing tech sector with preservation of Washington County's agricultural heritage and farmlands. That balance reflects years of planning and the commitment made during the 2014 Grand Bargain when leaders across Oregon negotiated a compromise, limited strategic growth paired with strong protections for high-value farmland and long-term stability in our land use systems. These were institutional commitments. Given the scope of this bill and the limitations of a short legislative session, rushing it risks bypassing critical analysis and public input. The fiscal and the administrative responsibilities at the county level are real, and we have not yet had the opportunity to fully understand or plan for them. Responsible economic growth that strengthens families, businesses, and our communities depends on listening to those who know their neighborhoods best. I implore this committee to guarantee a public process for the residents of Oregon who will be affected and to carefully consider the precedent this bill sets. Why rush a bill of this magnitude? Let us pause, have more conversations, and bring this back next year with time for thorough analysis, robust public engagement, and thoughtful planning. Honoring past agreements and assessing impacts is not a barrier to progress. It is a foundation of responsible progress that works for everyone. I urge you to vote to pause this bill, given the impacted communities the time and the input they deserve. These views are my own, and I appreciate you listening to me.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Kipperlyn Sinclair. I am a Hillsborough City Councilor and former Planning Commissioner. I am testifying in my personal capacity as a Hillsborough resident and one of more than 20 electors opposing Senate Bill 1586. SB 1586 represents a permanent rezoning of 1,700 acres of prime farmland. Decisions of this scale demand clarity, transparency, and measurable public benefit. This bill offers none of the three. It is being advanced on a 3-week timeline, effectively limiting meaningful public engagement. It lacks clear definitions, enforceable standards, and accountability. Even the term manufacturing is subjective, creating broad loopholes and weakening public trust. The bill promises large-scale job creation, yet in the past year, Hillsborough's 3 largest industrial technology manufacturers have laid off thousands of advanced manufacturing workers. The very the very family wage jobs this proposal claims it will produce. If existing employers are contracting, what evidence supports the assumption that similar facilities will now expand? The bill includes no minimum jobs per acre requirement, no binding employment floor, and no measurable benchmarks. It also contains no requirements for comprehensive environmental impact review. Large industrial users and data centers would place significant strain on water and energy systems with potential costs shifted to ratepayers. This is a generational land use decision. It should be deliberate, precise, and backed by enforceable public benefit. I urge you to oppose SB 1586.
Thank you. Councillor Nolan.
Chair Broadman, Vice Chair McLean, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to convey my opposition to Senate Bill 1586 as introduced. I'm Mary Nolan. I speak today on behalf of myself and 180,000 people I represent on the Metro Council, and also as a business owner employing 65 Oregonians. While I join the sponsors in seeking prosperity in our region and state and more living wage jobs, as introduced, Senate Bill 1586 looks kind of like fool's gold to me. It sparkles with the possibility of new jobs, but contains not a word about how many, at what wage, how soon, for how long, and it requires no binding commitment from anyone who might pursue development to deliver even one net new job. No binding commitment. When Metro conducted our state-mandated urban growth management decision about a year ago, we invited all 23 cities in the region to request and justify changes to the UGB. Hillsborough did not ask for an expansion. We collaborated with cities within the greater Portland UGB, including Hillsborough, to plan together for housing and employment for the next 20 years. We invited business leaders, city officials, including Hillsborough, agricultural interests, developers, conservationists, worker representatives, young people, and regular residents. We made some big changes because of what we heard. But collectively, this year-long effort concluded that the greater Portland region already has sufficient land to support job growth for the next 20 years, already in the existing UGB. There's no justification to change the designation of this land now. There's no reason to favor the owners of this land over the owners and interested developers of other, arguably more suitable industrial land in the region. There's no guarantee that net new jobs will come. And if they do, there's no commitment to assuring that those jobs and profits stay here and benefit Oregon or the Portland region or even Washington County.
Thank you,
The
Council.
legislature has considered this request.
Can you give us one more thought?
I am wrapping this one up. 2 sentences. The legislature has considered this request in various forms many times before and rejected it. I urge you to reject this version as not fully baked and suggest the proponents find other ways to meet their ambitions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Juan Carlos Gonzalez and Hillsborough Mayor Beach Pace.
Good morning, Chair Broadman and members of the committee. I'm Beach Pace. I'm the mayor of Hillsborough, here in support of the Oregon Jobs Act, SB 1586-4. Thank you to Senator Sollman for your leadership at an important moment in Oregon's history and Oregon's economy. Working with Councilor Gonzalez and our partners at Metro, we reached a compromise, bring a portion of these lands into the UGB now for a near-term job creation, while placing the majority into urban reserve to be considered later through Metro's established process. We asked the legislator to act on that agreement this session. These lands have gone through nearly 20 years of review, regional planning, legislative action, task force work, multiple hearings, and a public hearing in Hillsborough. Few sites in Oregon have been studied more thoroughly, and none are more ready and better positioned to immediately help the state's economic recovery. These lands were identified as amongst the strategic lands in the state for large, advanced manufacturers that require medium to very large sites. The legislature recognized their importance in SB 4. Ultimately, this is about opportunity, ensuring the next generation of Oregons has access to family wage jobs. And an example of that is Anna. Anna graduated from a 2-week free program that got her ready to go from working fast food at minimum wage to working in tech at $65,000 a year with excellent benefits. At the program graduation, Anna was crying tears of joy due to her new job and the transformative opportunity that was created for her and her children. These are the types of life-changing opportunities we want to bring to Oregon through SB 1586. Thank you, and I respectfully ask you to advance SB 1586-4 with the compromise amendment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Great. Buenos dias, Chair Broadman, Vice Chair McLean, and members of the committee. My name is Juan Carlos Gonzalez, and I serve as a Metro Councilor in the Greater Portland region. I am here to express Metro's support for the compromise on the land use components of Senate Bill 1586 as reflected in the -4s. Metro manages the urban growth boundary for the Portland region. While we do not support the original proposal, we recognize that today's economic conditions call for coordinated action to attract jobs and strengthen regional prosperity. This compromise strikes a much better balance. It reduces the acreage added directly to the urban growth boundary and designates the remaining land as urban reserve, ensuring it goes through Metro's established growth management process before any future expansion. Hillsborough is uniquely positioned to attract large manufacturing employers due to its proximity to major industry, infrastructure, and the airport. It is one of the best places in the state, in the region, for developing employment land at the scale, speed, and purpose being discussed. At the same time, we continue to want stronger assurances that bringing in these 373 acres will deliver high-quality family wage jobs, and we are committed to partnering with Hillsborough to ensure these lands fulfill their economic promise. UGB decisions, careful analysis, and robust community engagement is a cornerstone of maintaining public trust. That is why we support designating most of this land as urban reserve rather than expanding the boundary all at once. If additional land is needed, it should be moved through a transparent planning process that balances our shared values. Finally, land supply alone does not create jobs. Infrastructure readiness is often the greatest barrier to development. We must invest not only in planning for future expansion, but also in preparing land already inside the urban growth boundary. This compromise balances the need for timely economic action with a thoughtful, region-wide strategy, and we urge your support. Thank you so much. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Councilor. Next, we have Representative Ben Unger, former Representative Ben Unger, and Sam Diaz.
Chair Broadman, you want me to go first?
Please, welcome.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee, and thank you for having me. My name is Ben Unger, and I am a former state representative from House District 29. I don't even know if it's still House District 29. I think it is. I represented Hillsborough, Forest Grove, and Cornelius. It's good to see some of my former colleagues up on the dais today. I now live in Atlanta, Georgia, but I still co-own a family farm with my sisters out in Cornelius, Oregon. I'm here to oppose 1586. I have 3 things I want to say. Hopefully I can do it all in a minute and 30 seconds. The first thing I want to say is that there are 2 ways to think about global competitiveness. This bill is a competition race to the bottom approach to global competitiveness. Give away all of our taxes, give away our land to developers. We think that is going to allow us to compete with the Idahos and Texases of the world. We know from trying this before that just doesn't work. Idaho would be willing to put a nursery ward on top of a toxic chemical waste site if they needed to in order to get a job. We aren't going to be able to compete with that. There's another way to compete globally, And that's through investing in our K-12 education and our higher education and in the exceptionalism that is Oregon. I think Oregon's agricultural community represents the exceptionalism of Oregon, and it's worth investing in, and this bill does the exact opposite. The second thing I want to say is that a deal is a deal, and I'm not a deal is a deal guy, but when you make a deal and then one side of the deal takes the land, uses it for what they said they were going to do and develops it, and then comes back later and says, oh, now we want the land that was protected and we want to develop that land too. I don't think that's a great way to do business. That's my second thing. And then the third thing is that this land, they're not going to use it for what they say they're going to use it for. We've been through this a million times before. People have promised that they're going to open up land and use it for these kinds of jobs, but in reality, they use it for top golfs and warehouses and data centers. And the reason why we know that that happens is because this bill had to put in amendments not to allow that to happen this time, because that's what happened last time. And so for all of those reasons and a bunch of other ones that I'll submit in some written testimony, I respectfully ask you to reject this bill. Thank you so much for your time. It's good to see you all.
Thank you, appreciate it. Mr. Diaz.
Okay. Good morning, Chair Broadman, Vice Chair McLean, and members of the committee. My name is Sam Diaz, Executive Director at 1000 Friends of Oregon. We are accountable to our members who live and work all across our state, our Forestry Ag Advisory Committee, and our Board of Directors, half of whom are farmers and ranchers, and the other half are planning directors, developers, and elected officials. I'll just make 2 points as we urge you to not move this base bill and Dash 4 amendment forward. First, we must acknowledge the hard work that our farmers, farm workers, ranchers, and forest land managers bring to our state, not just for being an economic powerhouse, but the experiences that we get to enjoy as Oregonians because of their hard work. But for too many, our stewards are facing direct threats, like this bill. Senate Bill 1586 proposes to directly clear the path to pave over 30 active farming operations. The bill also fails to forecast the dominoes that would fall to the broader economy: ag equipment suppliers and lenders, farmers markets, CSA programs, and restaurant supply chain relationships. My second point is there is simply no need for more raw land. In 2023, OBC, OEDA, and League of Oregon Cities received responses about whether Oregon cities and towns had industrial lands or not. Survey said, we do. Over 10,000 acres, sites of all sizes, including multiple 500-acre plus sites. Zooming into Portland Metro's UGB, we have over 5,000 acres of industrial lands. What's even more apparent is how much vacant land and empty buildings we have in the region. In Central City alone, we're suffering from a 40% commercial vacancy rate, the highest in the nation, and 6% industrial vacancy rate, which marks a 15-year high. Instead, we need to focus on land readiness dollars, and that's something every Oregon district can benefit from. Drink Oregon wine, buy Oregon beef and lamb, use Oregon wood to build the housing we need, support Oregon ag and forestry. Help revitalize a cratered and vacant Portland metro region. Join us in DC as we push for federal funding for job creation and infrastructure. These are the things we must do to take control of our economy and bring opportunity and stability to Oregonians. Senate Bill 1586 takes us down the wrong path. We respectfully ask you to not pass this bill or amendment forward in the committee.
Thank you. Next, I have Duncan Wise, Keith Levitt, and Larry Bechtold. Welcome.
Thank you. You want me to go ahead. Yes, I'll start. Chair Broadman, Vice Chair McLean, members of the committee, my name is Duncan Wise. I'm the president of the Oregon Business Council. The council had the great honor of staffing the Semiconductor Task Force a few years ago. And I'm here, appreciate the opportunity to testify strongly in favor of 1586. This bill is a critical step in advancing the work you did in 2023 on the Semiconductor CHIPS Act. In that bill, you basically made the declaration that Oregon is going to be one of the world's centers for semiconductor. We have 15% of the jobs here right now in America, and we are one of the greatest places for semiconductor in the world. That said, this bill is an incredibly important piece of work to advance that vision, both in terms of the land issue, which I'm going to talk about, permitting transparency and innovation incentives. I really want to focus on the land piece. You have made enormous progress. We've seen a lot of investment since the CHIPS Act. We've seen a lot of partnerships with education and universities. We're really building out this ecosystem. The big problem we have is land. If we're going to be one of the world centers for semiconductor, we need available land in the place that is absolutely the center of the ecosystem for semiconductors, which is Hillsboro. Hillsboro is the center. Everything radiates from Hillsboro, and Hillsboro has run out of land. It is an extraordinary place with the infrastructure, the economic development capacity to really build out additional companies. And despite what you may have heard, we do not believe, from the point of view of the Semiconductor Task Force and the work we did, that we have sufficient land in the Portland region where it needs to be. An acre is not an acre. It's got to be in the right location with the right infrastructure and the right relationships with other companies, and that's what we need. This is a critical piece of legislation, and we need it now because other states, as you've heard from Senator Sollman and others said it brilliantly, we're in incredible competition right now with other states who really want what we have. And if we don't act, if you don't act, I'm really concerned about our ability to maintain our competitive position. So I really strongly urge you. It will bring new jobs, as we've heard. It will bring new investment and more revenue. It's a critical piece of work for this legislature. I strongly urge support.
Thank you, Chair Brodman. So, Mr. Wise, obviously, I know you've been before many committees here in the legislature, and so obviously I know the land piece is a significant issue. This, of course, is the Finance and Revenue Committee, and so that's why a lot of my questions are, I mean, I care about the land piece very much. However, about the tax credit, and I've read through the amendment, and it's lengthy. And so do you have any idea of the parameters of the tax credit, and do you know how much it would cost for the state of Oregon?
I have not looked at the new amendment, to be honest, Senator Taylor.
All right.
I would just say that it is very clear to me that the investment tax credit for semiconductor has already made a big difference. Again, we want to be the innovation leaders in our industry.
I'm just talking about the actual...
So I don't know, but the new piece, I just haven't looked.
All right.
And I think it's,
Thank you.
Thank you. Whoever wants to go next.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I'm Keith Levitt, and I have recently stood up a consulting firm called Confluence Strategies and led the industrial land work on the Semiconductor Task Force in my prior role as Chief Trade and Economic Development Officer for the Port of Portland. I've worked in the metro region for 30 years and have been on the front lines of industrial development, bringing a lot of large sites to the market. And I will tell you that our region has, without a doubt, over the last 20 years, slowly but surely built out the obvious places for major large-scale industrial property. What is left is a patchwork of industrially zoned property, but is not aggregated or assembled to be anything of scale that allows you to compete in the advanced manufacturing sector. We knew this very well when we brought Senate Bill 4 forward to the Joint Committee. That bill passed with extraordinary authority to the governor, as you all remember. It made all of those policy hurdles, and you're going to see the same debate again here, and we look forward to hearing that debate because I do think this bill is going to be able to withstand all those questions, all those important questions, and move forward. One of the things that I have submitted for your consideration, and it's not up, but I'll make sure it's in front of you. Our competition caught the last wave of semiconductor investments. Oregon did not. And it's not because Oregon doesn't have the best workforce or the best supply chain. It's because we have no land. Arizona, 1,000 acres. Texas, 1,200 acres. Ohio, Intel, 1,000 acres. New York, 1,300 acres. North Carolina, 445 acres. That's our competition. They all opened up those sites in the last 5 years. They all started the planning on those sites over the last 10 years. These are generational, game-changing developments, and I would very much encourage you to fully review this bill and all these questions, but support the bill, pass it. We need it right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Boardman, Vice Chair McLean, members of the committee. My name is Larry Beckadall. I'm a Senior Vice President for Strategy and Advanced Energy Delivery at Portland General Electric. PGE is a fully integrated electric utility that serves over 950,000 customers in 7 counties and 51 incorporated cities, including Hillsboro. We power more than 2/3 of the state's commercial and industrial activities and almost half of the state's population. We are proud to be an Oregon company and Oregon's largest provider of electricity. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comments today supporting Senate Bill 1586 and the amendments. PGE has a long history of partnering with communities in our service area to support their growth and plans and development needs. PGE appreciates the conversations we've had with the City of Hillsborough, sharing many important considerations about the electrical infrastructure is placed if this land is developed for high-tech and advanced manufacturing. In recent years, BPA, PGE, and the City of Hillsborough have been in discussions over a number of potential options in preparation for the future expansion in high-tech and advanced manufacturing. PGE's intent, in partnership with BPA and the city, is to use existing lines, rights-of-ways, and transmission corridors to minimize the land impacts. If Senate Bill 1586 is enacted and this area is developed, we will be prepared to serve it. Electric infrastructure projects can require multiple state departments and local approvals, and delays can affect service timelines for new customers and economic development opportunities. We encourage the legislature to continue to streamline siting and permitting processes for utilities in future legislation. PGE looks forward to continued partnerships with the City of Hillsborough to serve the evolving needs of the region. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on Senate Bill 1586.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Next, I have Nellie McAdams, Aaron Nichols, and Dean Moberg.
Chair Broadman, Vice Chair McLean, members of the committee. My name is Nellie McAdams, Executive Director of Oregon Agricultural Trust. We oppose Senate Bill 1586 and the -4 amendment in part because it's based on misconceptions about how the land is used for Oregon's second largest industry, agriculture. First, the land is actively farmed on 1,500 of the 1,700 acres. Most of it is in wheat and grass seed, which might look empty in winter, but that's far from true. Grass seed generates over $1 billion in total annual economic activity for the state. Even without irrigation, farmland of this caliber can grow high-value crops. My farm nearby is unirrigated and grows hazelnuts, grass seed, and winter wheat on much worse soils. While some landowners support this bill, much of the land is leased to farmers who oppose it. In fact, nearby farmers would buy this land to farm but can't because it's being held on a speculation that this bill keeps alive. When the same 1,700 acres has been requested by 6 bills in 9 years, each time for a different reason, and none of them justified, the legislature must question the underlying soundness of the bill. It is not about businesses needing land. It is about a few people wanting to sell for a massive profit. And it's not the legislature's job to help them get rich. What's at stake is not only our farmland, but our tax dollars. The state shouldn't waste limited resources on providing costly infrastructure and services to unneeded greenfields. Land use decisions for UGBs or urban reserves require detailed considerations of needs and costs, but all we have here is a 6-pager that estimates the expansion might break even in 35 years, if at all. There are no sideboards for jobs, and there's plenty of land. The Semiconductor Task Force report overlooked thousands of acres, and Hillsborough has 500 unbuilt acres next to this property. Land is not a limited factor for advanced manufacturing, and the city has chosen to use only 30 acres of its 1,100 acre supply on high tech, while using hundreds of these acres for data centers. Note that the amended bill still allows an unlimited number and acreage of data centers as long as they are accessory to another use. For these reasons, I urge you to reject this bill.
Thank you.
Chair Broadman, Vice Chair McLean, members of the committee. My name is Dean Moberg, and I testify today in opposition to SB 1586, including the amendment on behalf of the Oregon Association of Conservation Districts. OACD represents Oregon's 45 soil and water conservation districts, which work with individuals, organizations, and agencies to voluntarily steward soil, water, and habitat resources. Prior to my work with OACD, I enjoyed a 35-year career with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and I co-authored the reference book, The Soils of Oregon. SB 1586 proposes to industrialize Class 1 and 2 prime soils, some of the best soils for farming in the world. These soils developed in rich silt loam sediments deposited by the Missoula floods, and over a period of 15,000 years, those soils sequestered carbon, built organic matter, and developed microbial communities to create a remarkably fertile topsoil. What took thousands of years to develop can be destroyed in one construction season, and these soils would never again produce another crop. When Governor Tom McCall signed the iconic Land Use Act of 1973, Oregon began an exemplary process to protect farm and forest land while allowing smart development benefiting entire communities. SB 1586 undermines our land use system and bypasses collaborations that allow residents to be engaged and projections of economic benefits to be based on accurate information. OACD urges a no vote. Thank you for hearing my testimony, and thank you for your service to Oregon. It is appreciated.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Chair Broadman, Vice Chair McLean, members of the committee. My name is Aaron Nichols. I live and I farm in Hillsborough, very close to 1,700 acres, and I'm strongly opposed to Senate Bill 1586. The constant attempts to bring this land into the UGB outside of a regular process has already harmed agriculture. In my area, speculators are pricing farmers out, making it nearly impossible for successful farms like mine to expand. Should this development come to pass, it would be far worse. 1,700 acres of industrial buildings would cut the northern region, where I farm, off from the western region, forcing those who farm in both areas to choose one or the other. Further, the smaller northern region would have no access through rural routes to the services and infrastructure in the west. Losing the soils themselves is a worse situation. There's about 6 or 7% of our high quality farming soils in the region, and some of the very best we have. I once farmed in upstate New York, and we worked just as hard. The farmers there were at least as good a farmer as I am. And we produce about half there of what I produce in my very good Washington County soils. The difference is just the soils. And I think you can compare those soils to what's gone into Hillsborough's 1,100 acres they've had since the Grand Bargain, when they've been unconstrained by land. About 30 acres into advanced manufacturing, about 250 acres into data centers and fulfillment centers, and 500 acres that's unbuilt. There is no urgency here. And that's one of the reasons that I think 94.6% of the testimony in the record opposes this bill. And lastly, I'm here because I'm a father. My children's school, West Union, is a Title I school, and it's seen more economic development in its catchment area than any other school in Oregon. But we don't see benefits. We fundraise for almost every supply, from pencils to Clorox wipes, but never once has a data center or a logistics center pitched in, though they surround the school and they've replaced many of our students. This development's not for us. It's not for our community. The money, like the data, is shipped elsewhere. So I thank you for allowing the time to hear from a local farmer and a father about the unintended consequences this legislation will have in our communities, and I urge you to vote no, and appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joaquin Castaneda, Trevor Nix, and Lisa Bazanovich.
Hello, good morning. My name is Joaquin Castaneda, Director with State and Local Government Affairs at Genentech. As a founder and leading innovator in the field of biotechnology, Genentech is a significant economic partner in Oregon, currently employing over 500 individuals in the state. Genentech has announced a commitment to invest $50 billion in the U.S. over the next 5 years. And we believe that this bill is essential, as it will significantly improve the business climate and help position Oregon as a prime location for these types of future investments and job creation. For these reasons, Genentech strongly supports the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Trevor Nix.
Hello, everyone. My name is Trevor Nix. I'm founder and CEO of Caravel Bio. I'm speaking today in support of House Bill 1586, especially in support of the expansion of the R&D tax credit. To give you a little background, Caravel is a biotechnology platform company that I started following my PhD at Tufts University in Boston. We are focused on developing novel enzymatic technologies for carbon capture and utilization and critical minerals recycling and separations from mines. Today, we brought more than $10 million in research dollars into Oregon through venture funding and federal research grants, and we employ 8 individuals in Portland, 2 of which are native Oregonians, with an average salary greater than $100,000 per year. I want to emphasize that the expansion of the R&D tax credit to include industries outside of semiconductors would benefit our company today. I used the publicly available R&D tax credit calculator and can say that had we been eligible for this tax credit in 2025, I would have been able to afford to pay an additional employee. So importantly, with the way Oregon's tax system works, yes, there's slightly less revenue on the corporate tax side of things in regards to that tax credit, but also it's going to come back in the form of wages, at least at my company. that is all I wanted to say today. So thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Ms. Bazanovich. We'll come back to her if she's here. Next, I have Eliza Walton.
I'm here.
Okay, go ahead.
Chair Broadman, Vice Chair McLean, and members of the Senate Committee on Finance and Revenue. For the record, my name is Lisa Bazinovich from Oregon Life Sciences, and I strongly support SB 1586 and am here today to focus specifically on the importance of the R&D tax credit provisions and their impact on Oregon's life sciences sector. Life sciences are one of Oregon's most important economic drivers operating across the state, not just in the Portland metro region. The sector spans research, development, scale up, and manufacturing, supporting high-wage jobs and long-term career pathways in communities statewide. Today, Oregon's life sciences sector includes nearly 2,000 companies like Caravel and Genentech, who you just heard from, and employs more than 20,000 Oregonians with average annual wages exceeding $100,000. This is truly statewide industry. Roughly 1/3, about 37% of Oregon's private bioscience companies are located outside the Portland metro region, supporting regional economies throughout Willamette Valley, Central Oregon, and Southern Oregon. The economic impact extends well beyond those direct jobs. For every 10 jobs in the life sciences sector, an additional 17 jobs are supported elsewhere in the economy for a total of nearly 75,000 jobs statewide, contributing directly to Oregon's tax base. Many life science companies, both emerging and established, make location decisions years before revenue is generated and well before manufacturing facilities are built. The same is true during acquisitions when larger companies decide whether to keep jobs and investment in Oregon or consolidate them elsewhere. State-level policy signals matter early because they determine whether Oregon stays in the conversation at all. At least 37 other states already offer a state-level R&D tax credit for our industry, and without comparable tools, Oregon is often screened out early before jobs are created, before facilities are built, and before long-term tax base is established. SB 1586 recognizes that research, development, and scale-up are integral parts of advanced manufacturing. It's carefully structured, applies to Oregon-based activity, and reflects fiscal discipline while supporting long-term economic growth. For these reasons, I respectfully urge your support of SB 1586. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony.
Thank you. Eliza Walton, Glenn Fee, and Barry Bolding.
Hello, Chair Broadman, Vice Chair McLean, and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Eliza Walton, Coalition Director with the Oregon League of Conservation Voters. I'm here in opposition to both Senate Bill 1586 and the Dash 4 amendment, which the Oregon Conservation Network has designated a major threat this session. First, the process matters. Advancing a proposal of this magnitude in a short session without meaningful stakeholder engagement is inappropriate. Today, you'll be hearing from a lot of folks on the land use piece of Senate Bill 1586, because this bill didn't go through a policy committee before getting to you today. Second, I want to address the jobs issue directly. The environmental community is not anti-growth, and we are not anti-jobs. We support family wage jobs, clean industry, and long-term economic resilience. But smart growth means aligning job creation with sound land use planning. If we are serious about the economic development, we should be investing in our existing cities within the UGB, especially communities that have already lost jobs and need revitalization. True density means building up where infrastructure already exists, where transit can be expanded efficiently, and where we can reduce sprawl and climate pollution. Expanding into rural reserves is not the only path to growth. It is simply the most permanent and environmentally costly one. There is also significant concerns about infrastructure. These lands were designated as rural reserves until 2065 per the Grand Bargain. They are not ready for industrial development. Extending water, sewer, roads, and energy infrastructure on this area will be expensive, disruptive, and likely subsidized by taxpayers. We have not seen the data demonstrating that this reversal is necessary or fiscally responsible. Finally, as a state, we are actively fighting against federal overreach and the dismantling of bedrock protections like the Clean Air Act, and the Clean Water Act. We argue that those reversals ignore science and long-standing commitments. Why then would we exercise similar overreach at the state level, overturning a heavily negotiated, locally informed land use settlement in Hillsborough? Please vote no on Senate Bill 1586. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Broadman, Vice Chair McLean, and members of the committee. My name is Glenn Feet. I'm the Executive Director of Tualatin Riverkeepers. I'm here to represent about 2,000 of our members, most of whom are Washington County residents, who are strongly opposed to SB 1586. In the Tualatin River watershed, the destruction of areas like the farmland in question under this bill results in warmer water temperatures, which are particularly harmful to the sensitive river system and the salmon that return to our waters to reproduce. The streams, riparian areas, and wetlands hold surface water, offering flood resilience, slowing erosion, and filtering new waters that enters the watershed. When rural reserves are converted to industrial zone land as proposed in SB 1586, they are compacted, filled, and paved over with impermeable surfaces. The habitat is gone forever. The runoff from the newly paved industrial sites and the roads connecting them will not only warm the waters of a river that is already on the precipice of being too warm for salmonids, it will undoubtedly contain the contaminant 6-ppdq that comes from tire dust. This contaminant, whose devastating impacts are just now being understood, is acutely toxic to coho salmon, a protected species that's found in McKay Creek, which forms the western border of the 1,700-acre parcel. Just over a decade ago, the cities of Hillsborough and Beaverton, along with the Tualatin Valley Water District, invested in the Willamette Water Supply Project, which will begin supplying drinking water to residents, I believe, later this year. This project brings water from an entirely different river basin, the Willamette, because of a lack of water in our own. In the intervening decades since this project was conceived, the rapid residential growth in the in the addition of 30 data centers in and around Hillsborough has caused the demand for water to only increase, and dramatically so. We simply do not have the water required to meet the demands that this expansion would bring. SB 1586 would irrevocably destroy 1,700 acres of Oregon's richest farmland in important streams, wetlands, and riparian areas at a moment when we need them most. On behalf of the 1,000 members of and volunteers of Tualatin Riverkeepers, I urge you to oppose this bill. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chairman Broadman, Vice Chair McLean, and members of the committee. My name is Barry Bolding, and I'm an AI executive and a Washington County resident. I've spent my career building the exact type of infrastructure this bill contemplates. As an executive at Amazon Web Services, my teams helped enable Moderna to use cloud computing to develop their COVID vaccine, and before that at Cray, where I helped build, sell, and deliver the largest supercomputers on this planet for organizations like GE and the Department of Energy. I'm here because my experience tells me that SB 1586 has serious structural problems. The definition loophole in the bill is real. The bill references advanced manufacturing, but as of July 2025, the definition was updated to include AI-related data centers as advanced manufacturing. That's not hypothetical, that is how the industry already thinks and talks about this work. Under SB 1586, an AI data center qualifies both as the manufacturing anchor and as the data center itself. The restriction cancels itself out. The footprint argument doesn't hold up. Data center technology is shrinking rapidly. Power density per rack has increased 50-fold in the last 5 years. Facilities being built today are already being outpaced by the next generation designs, and converting 1,700 acres of prime farmland for infrastructure may be obsolete within a decade is a one-way door decision. What is Oregon's plan for data center ghost towns in 10, 20, or 30 years? Campuses like Intel's are already at risk for shrinkage. We should be planning and transitioning those facilities and not building new ones. Here's the core question. If the land is truly for advanced manufacturing, those facilities fit comfortably in thousands of underutilized industrial acres. But if it is for data centers, then the bill is being falsely advertised. Therefore, I ask you to vote no for this bill.
Thank you. Next, I have Andrew Byer, Rick Osborne, and I'm going to start calling people who have traveled more than 100 miles away. So following Andrew and Rick, we will have Tiffany Edwards, Isla Hoffler, and Fawn Hosey. Thank you.
Good morning. Chair Broadman, committee members, first I offer my thanks to you, Senator Sollman, and Senate Bill 1586 sponsors, because this is an important job creation bill worthy of consideration and passage in this short session.
Sir, can you put your name on the record for me?
I'm Andrew Beyer, CEO of EC Electric, representing EC and the National Electrical Contractors Association, NECA, an association of 150 Oregon electrical contractors. We provide about 10 million skilled labor hours annually with great pay and benefits statewide. NECA projects range from residential service vans to complicated industrial facilities and everything in between. EC Electric provides roughly 2 million of those 10 million hours with revenue just under $500 million. Our headquarters is in Portland with offices in Albany, Eugene, Redmond, Bay City, Newport, Hermiston, Seattle, Pasco, and very recently, Boise. More about Boise in a moment. Perhaps my personal story has some relevance to the topic at hand. I arrived in Oregon way back in 1973 with $500, a borrowed Volkswagen van, and a few hand tools. I currently hold a BS from Southern Oregon, a journeyman carpenter's card, and an MBA from the University of Oregon. Portland has been my home for over 50 years, and I now run a $500 million company with 1,300 employees, but shrinking in Oregon. I ask you to consider, is that type of opportunity still available in Oregon? My answer, not as it currently stands in the marketplace. Businesses are leaving, not moving here. Wealth is leaving at an alarming rate. Our employees are leaving to work elsewhere. Unemployment in Oregon just top 5%. For electricians, it's over 12%. Over 1,300 electricians in Portland and the Valley are now unemployed. For electrician apprentices, it's over 20%. As you search for dollars to pay Oregon's bills, please keep in mind that those lost electricians' wages represent over $12 million in lost tax revenue. But back to Boise.
Sir, I'm going to need you to wrap up.
Our best superintendent has now moved to Boise. He's asking me, should he stay in Boise or should he come back to Oregon? I want him to come back to Oregon. I want those jobs to come back to Oregon. Nationally, everywhere around the country, there's a shortage of electricians. They are begging for electricians. They're setting up apprentice programs. We have a stellar apprentice program in Oregon. Years, decades, we have been bringing in hundreds of apprentices to our program. This last year, zero apprentices in the Portland region. We need this bill. We need additional jobs. We need you to change the messaging about Oregon as a place where businesses are welcome, where we need jobs, where we want people to invest in our communities and in our education.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your patience.
Chair Broadman, Vice Chair McLean, and members of the committee, I'm Rick Osborne. I'm here from Coos Bay to testify in support of House Bill 1586 with the Dash 4 amendment, particularly the R&D tax credit expansion and other incentives. It doesn't take much research to see how Oregon ranks for business friendliness, and this doesn't just impact the metro area. Companies rooted in Southern Oregon are leaving, closing, or downsizing. We need to be able to replace those jobs while keeping the ones we have. The loss of just 100 jobs in a rural community can be catastrophic. I represent the Oregon Manufacturing Extension Partnership, and they're supportive of this bill because it expands incentives that before were only available to the semiconductor industry. It will apply in all parts of the state. Advanced manufacturing jobs average $90,000 a year or more. These are good employers that we're looking to attract or grow from scratch right here at home. This bill will help those efforts. I'm also working with coastal tourism interests on another bill to use the whole fish to create other value-added products besides the meat fillets. These can include fish leather, nutraceuticals, pharmaceuticals, and other healthcare products that will have game-changing benefits to people all over the world. There is at least one established company looking to relocate to Oregon to follow this model. Many other entrepreneurs would like the chance to start a business in this area. These homegrown companies will make those products by using things that we currently throw away to create value-added products. We need incentives to help them grow, stay, and keep employing people here in Oregon with good-paying, meaningful jobs that make a difference in our world. For these reasons and many more, I urge support of Senate Bill 1586 with the -4 amendment.
Thank you. Tiffany Edwards, Isla Hoffler, and Fawn Hosey.
Chair Broadman, Vice Chair McLean, and members of the committee. My name is Tiffany Edwards, and I'm here testifying on behalf of the Eugene Area Chamber of Commerce and Onward Eugene, the Chamber's Economic Development Division, in strong support of Senate Bill 1586 and the -4 amendment. This bill is important because it tackles a reality that Oregon can no longer ignore. We are competing nationally for high-wage manufacturing and innovation jobs, and right now we are losing more of those jobs than we are gaining. Senate Bill 1586 is about making sure Oregon has a promise with a place. In our region, this bill directly supports two major economic development efforts. First, Eugene's Clear Lake industrial area. This body appropriated $6 million in the 2025 session for infrastructure investments to this area for good reason. Clear Lake represents one of the most significant opportunities in the southern Willamette Valley for advanced manufacturing and traded sector growth. The Oregon Jobs Act strengthens the very incentive and site readiness tools needed to move Clear Lake from vision to reality. Second is the Southern Willamette Valley Innovation Corridor, a regional high priority partnership between our universities, business, and the public sector. By expanding Oregon's R&D tax credit to advanced manufacturing and more broadly, Senate Bill 1586 helps ensure that research, production, and jobs stay together and stay in Oregon. For that reason, we urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Broadman and members of the committee, thank you for this opportunity. I'm Fawn Hosey. I serve as president of the nonprofit group Save Helvetia, based in fertile farmland. We oppose this bill, though we would support an amendment stripping out sections 19 to 21. We need to build our vital agricultural economic sector. When the urban edge grows, so many conflicts make farming more difficult and need resolution. For one thing, farmers want to expand their businesses, but land speculation flourishes on the edge, raising prices per acre in multiples as high as 50 times, making it difficult to find a way to grow. Agriculture land needs land to grow. Urban areas can grow without sprawl. I submitted a document detailing how urban-style improvements interfere with farming on rural roads, such as curbs and deep ditches, which are hazardous when a farmer tries to pull her giant tractor to the edge for traffic. Construction on adjoining property can damage a farmer's investment in drainage tiles, taking time and expense to repair, which is a loss of farming. I'll submit another document explaining the various misconceptions of a farmer's right to farm, such as the time when the noise of a harvester on the day of a child's birthday party actually led to the police having to intervene. Don't increase these problems by taking more land. You've heard this morning that Oregon and Washington County have the best in the world assets in their top tier soils, irrigated or not, and a favorable climate, which, because of these, farming is a thriving, vital economic driver, making our asset portfolio more diversified and our surroundings more attractive. We need leaders to develop strategies that build our healthy, vibrant agricultural economy, and not get in the way and not destroy it. Please vote no.
Thank you. Do we have anybody I called who hasn't come up yet? Okay, Duke Shepard, Mike Vernace, and Daniel Hauser. And folks, this is probably our last panel. We're going to hold over additional public comment until this Wednesday. Unless you traveled more than 100 miles away, and in that case, please see the committee staff.
Good morning, Chair Broadman, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Duke Shepard. I work for Oregon Business and Industry. This bill is about more than just 373 acres in one suburb. Oregon is in the midst of a multi-year manufacturing recession with more job losses than during the Great Recession. We've been the second worst state for manufacturing jobs for over 6 years. This requires action, not more waiting. At all levels of education, manufacturing jobs pay better. So if you only have less than a high school diploma, you're going to get a better job in manufacturing than anywhere else, and that's true at every level of education. I want to point to Section 11. This includes a new incentive approach that is both precisely targeted and entirely locally determined. It allows local communities to abate for up to 5 years property taxes on new machinery and equipment in advanced manufacturing, relying on the advanced manufacturing definition at the federal level established by the Obama administration, and further detailed beyond that in the bill in terms of bioscience. It is applied only to new equipment purchased and installed after January 1 that's never been previously abated, that's never been previously taxed, and for no more than 5 years. It is up to local communities to use or not, to customize it as not as they fit with those in the parameters. It is not a tax credit. It does not touch the general fund. This is different than the R&D tax credit. Section 5 deals with the R&D tax credit. As I have read the amendment, it looks like it caps the R&D tax credit in 2027 at $90 million and $50 million in 2029. And if I may answer Senator Anderson's question from much earlier in the hearing, because the regulatory piece is something that we brought forward. We took those transparency reporting components from an executive order in the state of Washington, customized them with Senator Sollman for Oregon. The repeal is because the actions called for in the legislation are time limited. They require the agencies to do certain things within 120 days of passage and do those things. So once they are done, there's no need to have the law still on the books because it's time specific. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Daniel.
Chair Broadman, Vice Chair McLean, and members of the committee. My name is Daniel Hauser, Deputy Director for the Oregon Center for Public Policy, and I respectfully submit this testimony in opposition to creating a new R&D tax credit. The original semiconductor R&D tax credit was carefully constrained to make Oregon competitive for federal CHIPS Act investments. SB 1586-4 creates a new credit focused on advanced manufacturing, which does not share that rationale. There are no historic federal matching funds we're trying to take advantage of. This is a race to the bottom with no pot of gold at the end. While the benefits of R&D are real, evidence on R&D tax credits at the state level are mixed and depend on the design of the credit. To the extent that an R&D tax credit impacts economic activity, it's more likely to be effective for small and medium-sized enterprises. Unfortunately, SB 1586 ends the semiconductor credit's cap on refundability for businesses with more than 3,000 employees. And the manufacturing credit does not contain that cap at all, allowing large employers to siphon away funds that could better support startup research. The relative value of a new R&D tax credit cannot be determined in a vacuum. Every dollar spent on this tax program is a dollar that cannot be invested directly in workforce development programs like Prosperity 10,000 or in improving access and quality of childcare. And the price tag for this expansion is significant, with about $140 million in new tax credit caps by the end of the 29-30 fiscal year. And after that, the new corporate tax credit contains no credit certification cap after the 2030 fiscal year, meaning it will be a blank check to global corporations until 2036. And keep in mind, there's a 5-year credit carry forward. So we would end up paying the price for this when my kindergartner is enrolling at Oregon State, if I'm lucky. This new tax credit would be an anchor around the necks of our future. SB 1586 recognizes that the current budget period is a bad time to end tens of millions of dollars in corporate tax breaks, and so it waits till the next biennia. However, it's not a good time now or in a few years to add additional tens of millions of dollars in general fund subsidies to corporations that report record high profits relative to meager worker raises. I urge you to oppose the creation of a new manufacturing R&D tax credit.
Thank you. And do we have Mike Vernace? I'm going to also call up Manya Singh. Welcome.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Manya Singh, and I've come to offer a new perspective as a high school student. I'm a junior at Jesuit High School, and I've been interested in aspiring a career in robotics and STEM. And through robotics, I've had the opportunity to work with hands-on with engineering concepts, collaborate with industrial experts, and develop technical skills in design, programming, and problem solving. The skills I've developed through robotics are the same skills that make up Oregon's future workforce, the very workforce this bill is investing in. SB 1586 is not just an economic development. To students like me, it represents opportunity. It represents the possibility that the skills we are working hard to build in school can be used right here in Oregon, not in another state. Many of my peers in STEM are preparing to become engineers, technicians, programmers, and innovators. We are the next generation of the workforce. But we need industries here that match our education and ambition. By supporting semiconductor research, advanced manufacturing, and industrial development, this bill helps create the kinds of high-skill, high-wage jobs that students like me are preparing for. I urge you to support Senate Bill 1586-4, not only for economic growth, but for Oregon students who want to stay, work, and innovate in our home state. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for being here. Is there anybody who signed up who is traveling from over 100 miles away that I didn't call already up? So that's going to wrap up our public testimony today. We have one over here. Please come up, ma'am. And can you put your name on the record and offer us your testimony?
For the record, I am Elaine Stewart. I am an elected director at the Tualatin Soil and Water Conservation District, and I am representing my board today. We are a non-regulatory agency. We work to conserve soil, water, wildlife habitat, and other natural resources in Washington County. Our board is opposed to SB 1586. This rural reserve is prime farmland, class 1 and 2 soils. These are the soils that SB 100 was designed to protect when it was passed in 1973. These soils are not just some of the best in Oregon, they are some of the best in the world. If they are developed, they are gone forever from food production. We don't all work in high tech, but we do all need to eat. Some of you have been told that lack of irrigation makes prime farmland less valuable. On the contrary, it has produced a variety of crops, including wheat, oats, and clover. Much of it is also suitable for hazelnuts, which are easily grown without irrigation. Grass seed is an important crop rotation. It helps build organic matter, improve soil health, and keep the land productive for future generations. We encourage people who question the value of unirrigated prime farmland to speak with a farmer. Agriculture is Oregon's second largest industry, and our Washington County agriculture support businesses are a hub for farmers from Southwest Washington to the Oregon coast and down to Marion County. Every time acreage is removed from production and taken out of rural reserves, it places farmers and support businesses in Washington County and beyond at greater risk of hitting a tipping point where they may no longer be viable. The Board of Directors of the Tualatin SWCD urges you to reject SB 1586 and respect Oregon's land use law and prior agreements. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Great, thank you so much. So folks, we're going to hold over the remainder of public testimony until Wednesday. We have about the same number of people who we had today signed up to testify then. I'm going to ask Business Oregon and the bill chief sponsor to start off on Wednesday with some more in-depth description of the R&D tax, or of the tax credit, and answer questions from you colleagues. Is there anything else anybody wants to say before we finish for the day? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing on Senate Bill 1586, and we are adjourned for the day. Thank you, everybody.